Welcome to the Ringer NFL Draft Show. My name is Dan Heifetz. I'm joined by Danny Kelly and Craig Horlbeck. And yes, Draft Show, because Fantasy Football Show, we become the Draft Show in the offseason, and we cover the whole offseason. But Ringer NFL Offseason Show is not really a good name, but also no one's searching for fantasy football in the spring, so it's a whole thing. So we settled on Ringer NFL Draft Show, baby.
Only podcast in the world to change their name for part of the year, right?
We're not
the
wrong.
only one.
We're trailblazers.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Somebody else give it a shot. It'll work.
Yeah. If you're confused, please just hit the follow button, because again, we're the only show on earth that changes their name in the middle of the year. Which
I'm actually trying to think of any comparable example.
I don't know if there are.
It's literally no one else does
any
it.
form of media.
No one else does that. It's probably a dumb idea. It's kind of too late though. So anyway, yeah, the Ringer NFL Draft Show. We're going to be once a week in the middle of the week. We still have our Sunday reviews and recaps and our previews for later in the week for the playoffs. We're going to go into Super Bowl week. We're covering the season. But we also NFL Draft Show. We're covering the offseason too, and we'll get to a bunch of coaching news here in a moment. Hirings and firings and trades and free agency, and obviously the draft. Hence the name, if that wasn't clear enough. So we're going to go through. And again, DK scouted too many people for you guys to bail on us now. So if you've been listening all season, frankly,
DK's be doing all this work for nothing.
No, it's like literally, I can't tell you how crushed we'll be if you guys don't stick with us for the offseason. Like genuinely heartbroken. We're going to go through draft, the syllabus. DK is going to introduce this to this year's draft for all the, 28 teams at this point whose seasons have ended. And you can start looking at the draft for hope. And DK is going to do a dad-like syllabus for us to kind of explain, really for you to explain to your fathers what's going on with the draft. But first, and we'll also get to the national championship game last night, the blowout as well. But first, I want to hit all this coaching news. It was close, but
there was a moment there.
It ended up kind of close.
It was like a friend zone game. It was like they were there, but like you never had a shot. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Sure.
Anyway, you know what I'm saying. I want to start with this coaching news. I can't tell if Craig liked that or thought it was terrible, Joe.
I can't tell.
Still thinking about it. Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see if it's
provocative.
Yeah. It was clearly thought-provoking. Yeah.
Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator, has officially taken a job with the Chicago Bears as the head coach. So Ben Johnson turned down head coach interviews with the Panthers 2 years ago, turned down an interview with Washington last year, third time's the charm. This time he takes the Bears job, staying in the NFC North. Now, as Bears division rival, will play the Lions twice a year, which is crazy. And obviously, the main point is Ben Johnson's job is to like make Caleb Williams look like he doesn't suck. And, basically to undo the century-long hurdle or I guess 20-year-long hurdle that the Bears have just looked like completely inept for. Obviously, there's all these questions about the head coach stuff, and Ben Johnson was a coordinator. Can he do all the head coach stuff? That applies to everybody. I think the real question is, can he bring out the best in Caleb Williams? Can Caleb Williams maintain anything close to as good as Ben Johnson was successful with in Detroit? But also, Ben Johnson succeeded with Jared Goff, and Jared Goff is not Caleb Williams. Like, they're very different players. So DK, right now, gut reaction, like, this doesn't have to be some opinion you stick to, but your gut reaction. Do you think Ben Johnson will bring the best version out of Caleb Williams, the Caleb Williams we expected to see coming out of the draft? Do you think that guy emerges with Ben Johnson?
Yes. That's my gut reaction. My gut reaction was, this is a really good hiring. This is about as good of a hiring as you can make. And I think there's a lot of people that are worried about sort of the scheme fit and style fit based on what Ben Johnson did with Goff in Detroit. Like, the Goff offense in Detroit with Ben Johnson is not necessarily a good fit with Caleb Williams.
The in-structure offense versus the out-of-structure Caleb Williams.
Right. However, my belief is Ben Johnson is a smart guy, and that's why he designed an offense that really fit Goff's style, his strengths, everything he likes to do well. And they designed that all around him and basically made this offense really specifically unique to exactly what Goff is good at. And I believe that he can do that with Caleb Williams. I don't know if Caleb Williams will ever be what we thought he would be in the NFL, but I think this is the guy. Ben Johnson is the type of coach, smart guy, coming up with all these different, really interesting wrinkles in their offense. He's the best option that is out there right now for him to do this with Caleb Williams. So I'm pretty optimistic about it. I think it's going to look totally different than what it looked like in Detroit in terms of his offense, the scheme, and what they focus on. But that's fine. I think the idea is here, again, he's very smart, and he's going to design an offense that works really well with what Caleb Williams is good at.
I think a couple things. One, I think we're underestimating how bad Shane Are We Live Waldron was and how good Ben We're Not Live Johnson is. I don't know what the opposite of that is.
Yeah.
And also, it's just like the split of like losing Shane and then whatever the hell happened after Shane left in Chicago versus now getting Ben Johnson is obviously going to be a huge a huge upgrade. I also think like I will feel dumber fading this than buying it a year from now. You know what I mean? Like if I try to talk myself into, Ben Johnson might not be a football guy. He might not be a motivator. He can only kind of operate an offense with a Jared Goff drop back and hit your first read, and Caleb can't do that. I don't know. It's like there's just like too much talent with Caleb. We can't give up after a year. First overall pick, best talent in a long time. Ben Johnson is like clearly the best play caller in the league. You can overthink this easily and kind of like get into the nitty gritty and talk yourself in circles into not liking this, but that's like take artist shit. I mean, in reality, this is the best thing the Bears could have probably done. I don't know if it's the best thing Ben Johnson could have done, but clearly he thinks so.
Right.
Yeah, I think you have to support this.
I think it's also, I think what's evident here is he took this job because of Caleb Williams mainly. I don't think obviously the Bears organization is a huge draw. He's going to a team with a GM that's already in place, but he turned down, ostensibly, he turned down the Raiders job. He turned down the Jaguars job. They really wanted him in Jacksonville. The bulky thing, I think, is obviously a huge impediment to...
You mean by the bulky thing, you mean the GM who's like infiltrated the organization and built the whole thing?
The cockroach.
Correct.
Yeah, the cockroach.
Correct. Yeah, the fact that bulky is going to get whoever comes next fired, probably. I think it's very interesting. And this is exactly what we were saying before, like a couple of weeks ago, is like, the best situations, it comes down to the quarterback, man. So like the fact that he's really confident in Caleb and what he can do with Caleb, I think that's exciting. And I think also from the Bears point of view, this is the absolute perfect scenario in a world where this does work out. Then you have a head coach quarterback combination for the next 10 or 15 years, if it does work out. We don't know right now if it will, but from a process point of view, this is absolutely perfect to me because you got the hottest offensive mind in the NFL right now that's available, and you paired him with your number one overall quarterback. Just process wise, that's perfect.
Ben Johnson's so hot right now, Ben Johnson. But I do
so
want
hot
to just
right
say
no passes. Don't let Roma Dunze pass the ball. Just let Caleb pass it.
I think that one's over. But I do want to just summarize because I feel like now we just keep repeating ourselves. He's good. I do want to just actually for a moment take a second to say, so he was the offensive coordinator for the Lions for 3 years. And over that time where he was the coordinator for the Lions ranked first in points per game, first in yards per game, first in touchdowns per drive. So there were results. And they were
3-13-1 with Jared Goff before Ben Johnson was there, right?
Yeah. And then, ended up number one seed in the NFC, and they should have made the Super Bowl. So I also, this one I thought was very funny. I got this from ESPN. The Lions averaged 26 points per game every year Ben Johnson ran the Lions offense. So 3 years.
That's
the
good.
The Bears averaged 26 points per game in a season 3 times in the last 40 seasons.
Yeah.
Okay. So literally the last 40 years.
Low bar.
It's a low bar. So it's not just hype. There are results. I think, the two big differences in Chicago, as you guys alluded to, like there's style and there's talent. The talent is obvious. It's like, he succeeded with Detroit. Worth pointing out, the Lions like 7 first rounders on the offense. Jameson Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta was basically a first rounder. 4 of the 5 offensive linemen for the Lions that are starting are first rounders. Like a lot of talent there. But I think, frankly, that stuff, like, it gets overblown. Like, you're just going to be able to backfill talent. I think the question we were talking about is style. And again, Caleb Williams, not Jared Goff, as you guys are saying. And I think that's really the question is going to be, one of them is going to have to bend. Like, you're talking about the Lions running the most play action in the NFL. Bears, like, barely ran any play action at all. And I think that's the question to me is, like, both Ben Johnson and Caleb will have to bend a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I'm just really curious what the Bears offense looks like. Like, Caleb seemed really intent on proving he's a pocket passer, wanted to play from the pocket. I actually was curious what you thought, Craig, because I look at this as Aaron Sorkin. Ben Johnson's like the best script writer in the NFL, right? He's the best play caller. And then you have Caleb Williams is like Will Ferrell. Like, this is like a guy that was supposed to be a prodigy at improvising. Mm-hmm. And I'm really curious to see what it looks like is it going to look like 80-20? Is it going to look like, the way they made the league or Curb Your Enthusiasm where they just have like stuff written out, Cliff Kingsbury style where it's like, do this, that, and option C is just do whatever the fuck you can do. Or is it going to be like Caleb adapting more? And I'm just curious what it's going to look like, honestly.
Yeah. I feel like a good coach tailors his offense to his players' skill set, right? I would imagine that this is not going to look like the Lions offense where it's just like Caleb dropping back, staying in structure. I think you got to use him for what he can do, right? Like use his creativity, use his legs. I think it'd be weird if they were trying to force Caleb into doing something that is not the most advantageous to his skill set.
So, and then also while we're here, so the Lions, so it seems like Ben Johnson is also going to hire Dennis Allen as the defensive coordinator for Chicago.
Yeah.
Our beloved Dennis Allen. So ran out of town by the Saints, who basically all the players seemed like, well, I don't want to say all the players, but a lot of the Saints seemed to, Hate him. Hate Dennis Allen.
I mean, he had been there for fucking 10 years.
For a long time. So basically, I'm torn about this. My first reaction when I saw he was hiring Ben Johnson, was going to hire Dennis Allen to be the defensive coordinator in Chicago, was like, major red flag. Why are you bringing in a coordinator that's like players have hated? Then I'm kind of like, maybe that's kind of exactly what you want as a coordinator who's like clearly not head coach material, but like clearly
like
he's a good defensive coordinator.
It's also nice that maybe Ben Johnson's like, maybe there's a little bit of him is that like, I can continue to just focus on the offense and I have a former head coach who can come in and like take over the defense. I don't really have to worry about it.
Right. I think that's absolutely the appeal, and there's an X's and O's appeal. Frankly, the Bears defensive personnel, like the secondary is really good. I think it works really well with what Dennis Allen wants to do. I think that like on paper, it makes a ton of sense, and it makes sense as a delegation of labor, exactly what you just said, where like, I don't exactly think this is like Sean McVay bringing in Wade Phillips, where Sean McVay's like in preschool. Wade Phillips is like literally was coaching before Sean McVay was born. It's not quite that. I just frankly will be curious to see. I think that the version of this that's terrible is there's just rancor. And like, is that how you say that word? Rancor?
Yeah,
rancor.
Rancor. I think just basically I'm curious to see if the players hate Dennis Allen, or honestly might be a good cop, bad cop situation where, you know, I don't know. So I'll be curious, but
the chemistry will be interesting to see there. Yes.
I hope Ben Johnson gets ripped like Dan Campbell, starts drinking like 8 espressos a day and just kind of fully tries to recreate the Dan Campbell experience in Chicago.
Like how all the Belichick people just try to be Belichick when they left. And Ben Johnson just shows up.
He's like, we're going to be biting elbows.
Have you heard any other of the coaching hires that they're thinking about making in terms of like, it would not surprise me at all if Ben Johnson got some charismatic offensive coach guy that will be sort of play the Dan Campbell role. I don't get the impression he's super animated type of guy, Ben Johnson. He's like very, I mean, if you ever see him on the sideline, he just stands there. He doesn't smile, doesn't do anything.
Do you think that's actually what Dennis Allen's about? Because Ben Johnson's like, I got to be my own person. And Dan Campbell was so positive. He's like, I want Dennis Allen because I want my players to fucking hate us. Like, do you think that's what it's, you know, you just got to zag when everyone wants you to zig?
Yeah, tough love.
Yeah.
All the scheme people that I've talked to love Dennis Allen. Like,
he's smart. He just seems like an asshole. But like, you know, you gotta deal with.
Well, he's assholes to the running backs on the team. Maybe the other players like him.
I do feel like the bad taste in everyone's mouth that the Lions delivered to all of us this playoffs is like the trendy hipster take is to be like, Ben Johnson is Josh McDaniels and this isn't going to work, and that he relied on the ecosystem and having the Belichick and the Dan Campbell. I feel like that is kind of the take du jour is like Ben Johnson's actually overrated and this is not going to work and he can't motivate a team to be a head coach.
And to be clear, it's all related because the offense could be great and you could be a bad head coach. Like that's the thing. It's an art where it's like you're a CEO of an organization with hundreds of employees and you have to do all this stuff that was out of your purview. And like you have to be able to have an offense that's just as good as not just as good, but you have to improve the offense and develop Caleb while having way more responsibility you've ever had in your whole life. So it's like, you never know if people are going to be able to adapt to that. The flip side of the coin is I'm curious, the Lions, let's just say for a moment. So the Lions, Ben Johnson going to Chicago. We'll see what happens. It sounds like Aaron Glenn is going to be on the New York Jets as a coach. We'll see what happens. It hasn't been confirmed yet, but it sounds like Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator for Detroit, will be the Jets head coach. Let's just say for a moment, the Lions retain all their players and lose both these coordinators. Let's just say if they had kept everyone, maybe including the coordinators, maybe they'd have like a win total over under of like 12.5, right? Maybe 13, like probably 12.5 would be the Lions win total. If they kept all their players and lost the coordinators, how much would the win total drop?
10.5.
10.5?
I think Ben Johnson's worth 2 wins.
Yeah.
Just a win on each side of the ball. I think that's the question is like, what happens to Detroit now that you lose both coordinators?
They still have a ton of talent. They still have great players. I just think that it's all about the chemistry of how that all worked together. You know what I mean? The alchemy.
It's probably not going to be 10.5.
Worked out.
I'm already thinking about
like 9.
No, it's probably going to be 11.5.
I think 11.
I would say.
I think 11 too, because no one's going to bet. No one's taking under.
Yeah, but are you taking the under on that?
No one's taking the under on 10.5.
But nobody would bet the under on 10.5. Maybe somebody would take the under on 11.5.
And I think that's the question is like, is that the right angle though? Like we'll have all offseason to talk about it, but I think it's going to be interesting.
Have you guys heard anything about who's going to replace Ben Johnson in Detroit?
I don't know what they're going to do.
Are they going to hire from within?
I'm not sure. And that's the other thing is Ben Johnson going to take guys with him from Detroit or those guys going to stay with the Lions? Are they going to go to Chicago? I think that's an interesting thing.
Because Ben Johnson's going to have to hire an OC.
The whole thing is so weird. The whole like some teams are still in the playoffs, so those coaches can't. They can virtually interview and they can't get hired until right after they lose. It's just so awkward. It's like getting divorced and then announcing that you have a new girlfriend the day after the divorce. It's so weird.
It's weird.
Like the second the Lions lose, it's like Ben Johnson's the head coach of the Chicago Bears. It's like, Jesus.
It's weird, and it's in the division, so it's like they're going to play twice a year, and so I mean that's weird. But yeah, we can
it's
go
like
through
it's like Ben Affleck caught at dinner with Ana de Armas as divorce finalizes with Jennifer Gardner. You're like, geez, okay.
It's really weird. And just going through the rest of the openings. So the Bears hired Ben Johnson, Patriots hired Mike Vrabel. I think the Jets are going to hire Aaron Glenn. I will say we could talk about this more if you guys want when they finalize this. I will just say the Jets search has been really weird. They interviewed 17
They're
people.
hiring they're interviewing everyone.
Just to go through Aaron Glenn, Matt Nagy, Brian Flores, Josh McCown, Arthur Smith, this is for the head coach job, Mike Vrabel, Ron Rivera, Rex Ryan, Brian Greasy,
Rex Ryan and Ron Rivera.
Dude, Vance Joseph, Bobby Slowick for the Texans. Joe Brady, Jeff Ulbrich, who was the interim head coach, Darren Rizzi getting an interview with the Jets for the head coach job, Steve Spagnuolo, Mike Loxley is the head coach at the University of Maryland, Joe Witt Jr. is the defensive coordinator at Washington. I know. Jeff Hafley for the Packers.
This coaching search firm is earning their money on.
So
this
I was gonna. My first read when I saw this,
picking names out of a hat here,
dude. The first time I saw how many people they're interviewing, I was like, the Jets are like literally Mike Tannenbaum and the 33rd team are just racking up the billable hours. Like they're literally just trying to get milk as much money as they can. I actually think it's worse than that. I think that they're actually building the core of the business because there's like a couple consulting firms of like former GMs that like basically it's hard. Like when an owner fires a coach, the GM runs the search. When the owner fires the GM, the owner has to run the search. And they're like, I don't want to do that shit. So you just hire someone to do it for you. I think the 33rd team is using the Jets to build the foundation for their consulting business. And they're basically using these interviews, not for the Jets and just racking up money. It's like a book that you'll be able to flip to, like a wedding
building out their Rolodex.
Yeah, building a Rolodex.
So I'm curious if the Jets are letting the 33rd team do this and like don't even realize that they're basically investing in this company without getting any equity. Like basically that they're like basically seed funding this team.
Do they get paid per interview though?
They're just like going door to door and getting signatures.
Yes, it's crazy. They're literally just like, yeah, we talked like now in the future teams that the 33rd team wants to consult for. Like, yeah, we've talked to Robert Saleh, we've talked to all these guys. Or the Jets do know they're doing it and are literally letting the 33rd team waste their time in exchange for saving money on the consultancy.
Maybe this is a hot take. This is probably how you should do it, right? Like you should interview a lot of people, shouldn't you?
I don't know if you should be interviewing Rex Ryan and Ron Rivera.
Well, maybe
I think
not
at some
Rex
point
Ryan.
you're wasting.
Throw Rex Ryan out. I don't think you're wasting time because you're getting a broader lay of the land in terms of what you want. And sometimes I know this happens. Sometimes in these interviews, guys are much more impressive or much less impressive than you'd think they would be. So expanding, like widening the search, broadening the like the pool of people could you make the argument that's actually a good thing? Like
you could. Can I push back on that?
I mean, sure. Everybody else has.
In theory, the idea that, we want to talk to people to learn from them would hold more weight with me. If literally last year, 8 teams needed coaches and 1 fucking team interviewed Bill Belichick. Literally, 1 team was like, I'll take 7 hours out of my day to talk to this guy who's won 8 Super Bowl rings. Like, the Washington didn't even ask. They're like, well,
they had a whole year to think about it and they still didn't do it.
Yeah, they're like, we only want to have a serious conversation with people we'd actually hire. It's like, they don't want to talk to Bill Belichick for a fucking interview. They won't even talk to him. And it's like, I don't know. So I agree with you in theory. This is like
maybe me just pushing back on that whole narrative and being contrarian, but I kind of am starting to understand the Bill Belichick thing a little bit more. Because you're not hiring Bill Belichick, the guy who won 8 Super Bowls or whatever. You're hiring him and his whole weird posse of people, and you know all the weird stuff that goes along with his personality and how he wants to have total control over everything, and how you're basically handing over the keys of your organization to this old surly guy that hasn't won it in a few years.
You're right. Instead of giving Bill Belichick time, you should talk to Mike Loxley at the University of Maryland and Rex Ryan.
Bobby Slowick.
Bobby. So anyway, so the Jets, we'll see what the hell they do. Aaron Glenn, I mean, good luck. I'm really curious if they keep. I swear to God, if they keep Rodgers, which I don't think they will do, but if they kept Rodgers, I actually kind of think that there's a world where that could.
It's gonna be a fun offseason.
Hell yeah,
it wouldn't be boring.
You're gonna talk yourself into 2025 Jets.
That'd be the funniest thing ever. But the Jaguars, again, Trent Baalke scared him off Ben Johnson. I really think Trent Baalke has set up the whole organization for him to stay there forever. I think they might end up with Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator for the Bucs. He's also kind of a Ben Johnson guy where he's really smart. Everyone respects him. And he's kind of like, I actually want to stay in this job and don't want to, you don't know if you'll ever get a second chance. So I think he seems to basically be saving himself for marriage, so to speak, and it doesn't really want to jump into anything. But I don't know if he would take that job. And then there's the Saints, who I kind of think they're just going to hire Mike McCarthy for the Saints.
God.
Like I just think Mike McCarthy's going to go there. So, because if you look at their interviews, you take out the people who are not going to get the job. It's kind of like Mike McCarthy, Joe Brady for the Bills, but now he's in the AFC Championship game. Mike Kafka, who's the Giants offensive coordinator, Anthony Weaver for the Dolphins, he's the defensive coordinator. David Shaw, the Stanford head coach. I think it's just Mike McCarthy to the Saints, which kind of probably makes sense for everyone.
Yeah, it kind of does make sense, actually.
Did you guys see that Alvin Kamara tweeted, "My vote for head coach rhymes with fizzy"?
Who could that be?
The Rizzler.
The Rizzler impressed people.
Maybe the team really loves this Rizzler guy.
People like
maybe it's all especially relative to the Dennis.
It's a
Allen
classic
thing.
Antonio Pierce scenario where all the players are like, this guy's awesome, and the team's just going to suck.
Every player in the history of playing has always been like, hire the interim head coach. And I don't know if there's been 2 interim head coaches that have worked out once they ever got the job. I don't know if it's ever worked. Speaking of McCarthy, though, I have to just shout out this Cowboys situation. This is a clusterfuck. Like, this is an absolute insane. Like, Dallas literally fired Mike McCarthy a week after the season ended. And just to tell you where they're
Can you
at.
fire a guy whose contract is going to be up in a couple weeks?
That's the thing. They said it, and we still don't really know what happened, where it's like they wanted him to go or McCarthy wanted to go. Do you know where I'm really at? I kind of think either McCarthy wanted out, or honestly, I think they waited a week, and then Washington and Philadelphia won their playoff games, and Jerry Jones couldn't stand being irrelevant while the 2 other teams in the division were actually winning playoff games, and he just was like, fuck
like
it.
The guy
we're
in your
making a move.
dynasty league who just needs to make a trade.
Yeah, like he needed to get
something.
his fix. No one's talking about him. If you look at, imagine being no offense to the Cowboys fans, but can you imagine being a Cowboys fan right now? Because the Cowboys, you lose Mike McCarthy, fire him, or he quits you. I don't know what's more embarrassing. 8 days after the season ends, they are interviewing Kellen Moore for their head coaching job.
Their former offensive coordinator.
They fired Kellen Moore
2
years ago as the offensive coordinator. They fired Kellen Moore 2 years ago. He's now the offensive coordinator for the Eagles, who are in the NFC Championship game. You know who else is in the NFC Championship game? Dan Quinn, who was your defensive coordinator last year. Like, I honestly, it's like really embarrassing.
It's somewhat similar to, like, the picture that always gets shared where like Shanahan, McVay, LaFleur, and maybe there was some other guys on there, but it was on the Washington coaching staff at one point.
Yeah.
And then Washington was just one of the worst teams in the NFL for ages, but they had all the best coaches in the NFL on their staff at one point. They don't want to turn into that, I guess, maybe, or something like that. So they're bringing these guys back into the fold. I don't know, but it's funny.
The only thing I want to mention about this is because I can't get over Kellen Moore having a coordinator, like being fired as an offensive coordinator and 2 years later being interviewed for head coach, is Jerry Jones calls him Keelan.
Good God.
Jerry Jones doesn't know his name. So, it's kind of, it's like, remember when Bruce Allen, who was the president of Washington, used to call Kirk Cousins Kurt Cousins?
Yeah.
It's like that. Except I'm pretty sure Kellen Moore probably talked to Jerry Jones a lot more than Kirk Cousins talked to Bruce Allen.
Dude, if I'm 82 and I can remember anyone's name, it'll be a success. It's hard. It's hard out there.
I know. I kind of actually have a little bit of empathy for both of these guys because it's like my worst nightmare to mess up someone's name. And I'm bad at names. So
I still don't know if it's Zendaya or Zendaya. I'm 30.
It's Michi.
She's Michi. I know that. I know LeBron James is Guanji, but...
LeBron James is Guanji. Zendaya is Michi.
Yeah.
I don't remember the other ones.
I don't remember the other ones either.
I don't understand this Gen Z.
The movie
humor.
Smallfoot, DK. Check
Flip
it
the
out.
grunt.
I know that I'm
Guanji
supposed to remember what this means, but I have no fucking idea.
Danny
Should we all
DeVito's
watch
Dorgle?
DK, if you lose the middle seat bet, you can watch Smallfoot. You can only watch Smallfoot.
What is Smallfoot?
What are you talking about? Zendaya is Michi in Smallfoot. And LeBron
What are you
James
talking
is
about? I
Guanji.
don't know.
Zendaya is Michi.
I don't understand what you're missing here.
Yeah, what's not to get?
I just literally have never heard of this movie.
Well, buckle up. Get ready to learn Smallfoot, buddy.
72% on Rotten Tomatoes. All right.
That's actually too high for
cinema.
You don't get that anymore on the plane.
76. 62 popcornometer. Popcornometer.
Maybe we should have a poll where instead of raw dogging, DK has to watch a movie of our choosing or the audience's choosing.
It would be nice if I could
write a review.
know your generation a little bit more. Like, what's the one, the Holes or whatever that you guys always...
Holes?
That's too damn bad!
Well, you could just watch that on your own time.
That's a good movie. I would never have you.
Yeah, that's not
way
a
too
punishment.
nice. That's a luxury.
I might watch
watch
Holes.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Craig and I
You guys-
should watch Holes on the plane.
You
while
guys
have to
fucking
fly-
quote that all the time. I don't
Stanley
even know anything about it.
Yelnats. Yeah. Well, that's too damn bad.
Peaches and
I don't want
onions.
to do this, Grandpa.
I can fix that. Dude, incredible movie.
Kissing Kate Barlow.
Dude,
God, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
it's
at any
so
point.
good.
Legendary
It's so
movie.
good.
Top 5 movie all time.
Shout out Holes. Oh my God.
I have no idea.
No, you're going to raw dog that flight.
No, yeah. You'll never know.
I think I'd actually rather raw dog it.
Phrasing.
You want to just keep our bit going where we don't talk about the Raiders?
Yeah. I kind of love it.
Poor
that-
Austin. Austin was so excited.
It was ridiculous
About
to think
Ben
that Ben
Johnson.
Johnson would ever go there. Let's be real. Like the
Literally,
second
I
he chose Chicago, I'm like, yeah.
It's just Brady's like, can we talk? And you're like, what are you going to say? No, I won't take a call with Tom Brady. And then he's like, yeah, this kind of sucks though. Honestly, they should hire Pete Carroll.
It was good leverage.
Yeah.
He did a good job of leveraging everything.
I'm actually kind of excited. I kind of want Tom Brady to see how hard this is. Like, I actually am kind of excited for Tom Brady to be bad at something. Like the announcing being bad and running the Raiders and being
It's
bad.
like Michael
at,
Jordan in Charlotte. It's like, man,
Yes, I'm very excited.
this is not that easy.
No.
So you're a chef. Can you farm?
So that's the coaching carousel. We'll update it as more news comes out. More coaches are hired. How much time do we want to spend on the national championship?
Very little. We'll just. So Ohio State clobbered Notre Dame. It's 34.
It was like
It was
the
a close
Bills
game.
It was like the Bills Broncos game where they came out, Notre Dame scored, and you're like, whoa! And then it was 31. And then it was 31-7 like an hour later.
And then they
Yeah.
got the 8 points, and then they got it again, and you're kind of. It was really weird because I'm not gonna lie. Like if Notre Dame won that game, I was gonna give Catholicism a real shot. Like clearly, that was crazy, but
Yeah.
it kind of went exactly as everyone thought. I don't know. It was pretty. I mean, the Ohio State really dominated them. It was funny because it was like after the game, all the Ohio State players and coaches are like, I couldn't get Ryan Day being like, we have this remarkable story to tell, and now we can tell it. And I'm like,
No one believed in us.
yeah, no one believed this. I'm like, okay, you're the fucking Dodgers. You're the Yankees. You spent the most money and got all the good players, and you won. I don't know.
Dane
wasn't super
Brugler's
moved.
like texting or tweeting during the game that he thinks Ohio State might have the most players drafted ever.
Yeah,
this
no,
year.
it's-
And the crazy, maybe the two best players on their team, Jeremiah
Weren't
Smith and
even
Caleb
playing.
Downs, are coming back next
Oh,
year.
yeah.
because
They
they're-
also had a guy who's a first rounder who's probably he didn't even play in Josh Simmons.
yeah,
It's
so
crazy.
They were loaded. So Jim Nagy actually runs the Senior Bowl. Noted this, including Ohio State this year. 6 straight years, the team who won the college football playoff will have the most players drafted in the draft.
Interesting.
Which I mean, no brainer. But it's really literally like 1-to-1 in the last 6 years of like if you have the most NFL players, you won the title. Like it's just literally just the talent trumps all. Even if your coach is Ryan Day. I will just say for Ohio State, I'm not saying this is the best player on Ohio. Well, obviously the best player on Ohio State is Jeremiah Smith because he's basically Julio Jones again.
Yeah.
But again, that's 2027. But I love Trevion Henderson, the running back from Ohio State. I know
Dude.
Judkins had the game and
Judkins is good too. Yeah.
He was incredible as well.
Heifetz,
but, like,
I agree with you completely. Every time I watch Henderson, I'm like, God, this guy has more juice than anybody I've ever seen in my life. He's so fast.
Wow.
yeah.
Not
They're
really.
both
He's
really
not
good.
really the fastest guy I've ever seen, but he's got a ton of juice.
But Henderson is like a pro skill set where I feel like he could do everything. I trust him in a 2-minute drill. I think he can like be a goal line back. I think he can catch. He can block like in a way that I will get into all this, my boring ass blocking takes with running backs. But I just think he's I think that Judkins is going to like actually steal some shine from Henderson because Judkins is the one who had the 3 touchdowns and everything. But I don't know, but there's a
They're
lot of
great
very
1-2
good, very
punch.
boring, great players in the Ohio State team.
They're
But-
both Judkins and Henderson probably both go on day 2,
Do we-
and they just rotate these two guys. They're both very, very good. They've got Emeka Egbuka, who is the all-time leading receiver for Ohio State career, and he's never been like the best receiver on his team.
No.
Like it's incredible the talent that Ohio State brings in. This Jeremiah Smith guy, it looks like Julio Jones. JSN, you got Garrett Wilson, all these guys, Olave, all that have come through there. It's just amazing what they've done.
LSU's better, but yeah, no, Jeremiah Smith is the truth. So last thing before we get to Will Howard, quarterback for Ohio State, I'm intrigued. I'm not saying he should be like the top 5 pick or anything, but like I kind of
I gotta say, like I am admittedly a very casual college football fan. I watch sparingly throughout the regular season, then I watch the playoff. So I really my only experience with Will Howard is mainly in the college football playoff, save a few other games out there. But I don't know, man. He's big. he's mobile. I thought he was throwing darts. He seemed very accurate. He stepped up in the moment. He basically just had 4 straight great games, like the 4 best games of the season were in the college football playoff. That kind of means something to me. Like, if you wanted to tell me that the Steelers took a 4th-round flyer on Will Howard, I think I'd be totally down for it. And I know people who have been watching college football for years say that he sucks. Like, I was texting my brother, and he was like, enjoy Will Howard. He was the worst part of their team and the only reason why they lost games. But judging off the 4 games I watched in the playoff, I thought he looked good.
He played a lot better against the good teams at the end of the season. And I totally agree. It's weird because on one hand, it's like maybe it's the, maybe it's the 13 players in his team who will be NFL players within like 3 months.
I get it.
So...
A flyer.
He hit that cover 0 beater to like seal the game.
Dude, it was a dime.
Well, he threw to Julio Jones. Congrats. I actually thought that was like
it was
anybody could have caught that ball. Stop with this, like not giving giving the quarterback 0 credit for winning a national title. Like he did a good job.
I'm the one who's saying it. I agree. I think that like, again, people
I know. I'm saying we got to stop that. He should get some credit for the throws he made.
I agree. He was making like a lot of throws across the field to the outside of the field that were like pick 6 city, and he was throwing them hard enough and accurate enough to like actually get it to his receivers,
giving his receivers
pressure in his face.
I'm not even saying I believe in Will Howard. I'm saying that considering the Giants might make me watch an entire season of Drew Lock, like fuck it, I agree. Just take Will Howard in the 3rd round. Like let's just fucking.
I was
see
like,
what happens, man.
Watching it, Craig. I got visions of Matt Hasselbeck. Like a guy who's like he's never physically very exciting in any way, but just kind of a guy that runs the offense. Seahawks made it to the Super Bowl with him. He was like a 6th-round pick, but he's exactly the same size, 6'4", 235.
Not nearly as mobile as Will Howard, but yeah, right?
Yeah. So I don't think Will Howard's all that mobile. I was getting so mad last night when they kept running the QB draws with him. I'm like, dude, give it to your fucking running back who runs a 4.3. What are you doing? Give it to the guy who scored 3 touchdowns in Judkins or Trayvon Henderson, who's got more juice than anyone else on the field.
Yeah, that was Chip
And then
Kelly
you're running your slow, like lumbering white quarterback. Give me a break.
Will Howard.
Will Howard.
That's the only problem. It was Will Howard and Riley Leonard.
Riley Leonard puking after the first drive.
Oh
dude.
My God.
That was like some like Rudy shit right there. They ran him into the ground. And then he puked on the sideline after scoring.
I just hammered the money line. Ohio State money line.
He had 9 QB carries on the first drive.
Let's get to the draft, the syllabus week. I think that this is like our true introduction to this draft.
Draft starts now, DK.
What's the
Titans are on the
jingle?
clock.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
God, I love that noise.
It's really good.
It really does take you somewhere.
I think I've said this before, but if that little jingle sucks, the draft isn't popular. I swear. That took it up like 40%, that jingle. It's like the Netflix.
It's the best fucking sound because then it's immediately followed by the pick is announced. It's so exciting.
If it's on in the background and like a friend of yours, your partner who doesn't like football or care at all, they're at least hearing that jingle and bobbing their head back and forth. That it's like stanza. Yeah. It sticks with you.
It's Pavlovian really too. Like there's no way you would have day 3 of the draft on as background TV if that draft. You're so right. That is the secret engine. You got to find who made that.
I know that guy deserves more money.
If anyone knows who made that chime, please email us at ringerfantasyfootball@gmail.com.
Like the person who designed the swoosh or whatever the Nike. Like the most iconic logo on earth. And
Portland State grad, like art grad who just got like $50 for it or whatever. So let's get to syllabus week here for the draft, where I really just want DK. Frankly, we're doing this episode in large part because every year for 10 years, my dad calls me whenever he decides he's into the draft, and he's like, "Danny, are there any good players in this year's draft?" And I'm like, yes, there are good players. He's like, okay, what about any good quarterbacks?
Yes, there are good
players. Any good running backs? And he goes to every single position. And he just asked me if there's good players there. And eventually I decided that actually is a pretty good way to look at it. And 2, I kind of am sick of taking the call. So I'm kind of going to have DK answer the questions for my dad this year.
Yeah. I like that.
But I want to say though, DK, like, obviously there are I don't want you to say, yes, there are good receivers. Yes, there are good running backs. Yes, there are good tight ends. Cause that's somewhat obvious, right? I want to know if there are actually good running backs, if there are actually good wide receivers, if there are actually good quarterbacks. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Don't just say yes to every position, but yeah, of course there's good players here. I want to know if there are actually good players here.
All right.
Good distinction. Thank you, Craig. I won't make it quite that simple, but I do want to go through every position, and I just have a couple questions for you there. But basically, I just want to know if it's deep, if anyone's actually capital E elite, and then if who is catching your eye at each spot. But I do want to just go position by position.
Are we getting any generational prospects here?
No, that word's banned
50% of the time.
There are a couple things that I want to propose. Maybe we have a banned words list from this show this year, like Brock Bowers comparisons and generational. And there's certain things we should ban. Tight ends being athletic, etc.
Yeah, we should just stop saying generational. There should be a douche jar for anytime someone says generational on this podcast.
Douche jar?
I like actually good.
Yeah, we had jargon jar. Actually good is good.
Douche jar's from New Girl. So anytime Schmidt says something douchey, let's put money in.
It's like a swear jar, but douche jar.
We should have that where it's me every time I'm really wrong about something I was confident in. Craig every time he mentions the Warriors and I don't know, we'll come up with something.
Which will probably not be a lot the rest of the season.
That's true. We really wasted a huge opportunity there.
Anytime you mentioned San Diego State, how about that?
Also might not be a lot this year. Tough loss to UNLV.
I want to start with quarterback, though. DK.
Yeah.
Yes or no? Is this a deep year for quarterback in the NFL draft?
No.
Is anyone in the position actually elite?
I don't think so. Probably not. I would say compared relatively to other years, it's a down year at quarterback.
So I know last year was the opposite. Last year was a phenomenal year at the quarterback position. Potentially 5, 6, maybe even 7 of them might be good. If you had to place Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, who are the 2 projected top picks in this draft at the quarterback position, if you had to place them in the 2024 draft last year, I know just try to imagine you don't know what you know now about how these quarterbacks turned out. Try to think about when you were making your board last year, where would you slot in Shedeur and Cam?
I mean, honestly, based on what I was thinking last year at this time, I think it would be Caleb, May, Daniels as the big 3, McCarthy, Penix, and then probably that's where you start talking about Shedeur and Ward.
It's so crazy. That's
Ward
so crazy.
Would have been the QB 7 last year, I think. And Shedeur might have gone. I don't know where Shedeur would have gone, honestly. But obviously, I was too low on Bo Nix coming in, but
that's fine. Nobody was high on him.
Yeah. But I think, that's I think gives you an idea. But honestly, all these guys have turned out so good. It's hard to remember exactly how I was feeling at the time. But I do remember watching Ward last year before he came out because there was talk that he might come out, and then he ended up entering the portal instead. And he was going to be a fun kind of sleeper, a second round guy, something like that. And so I think, hindsight's 2020, but I think that's where it would have ended up being 6 or 7.
It's just wild how much necessity drives interest, this
100%.
guy would have been 7th off the board last year. And now, I mean, these guys are almost certainly going to go number 1 overall, one of these 2.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild. Every year we see it though.
I mean, we never use these words for the draft, but it's literally supply and demand. Literally that's what it is.
And it's so easy to talk yourself into guys developing and into a really good starter. I think especially after watching this last year where, situation dictates a lot. And if these guys land in a pretty decent situation, you never know.
But if there's any silver lining or solace for a fan of a team who didn't get a top 2 pick, you would say, hey, you should maybe bottom out again this year and look ahead to 2026 because this is not the year to get your guy. I mean, it's how I felt with Pittsburgh getting Kenny Pickett 3 years ago. This is maybe better than that, obviously. These 2 guys would probably be ahead of Kenny Pickett, I imagine, in your eyes.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, so maybe for you, Heifetz, a Giants fan, hunker down for 2026.
We'll see. I'm so torn on what the Giants should do at quarterback. I mean, I'm so torn. I'm curious what kind of environment you think these guys would succeed in, DK, because Cam Ward, I look at Cam Ward and I'm I feel like the pros are he's so calm in the pocket and he's he's just so confident in his arm, so confident he can throw the ball in tight windows and so confident he can escape from pass rushers. And the cons are so calm in the pocket and so confident in his arm and so confident he can throw the ball in tight windows and so confident he can escape. The stylistic, I feel like I can see his personality through his style of play where he's so confident. And I think that is his NFL upside. But I also feel you see so many of the downside potential because of the style of play. And I don't know if that's a fatal flaw or actually just a sign that with the right coaching, he actually could be incredible. I'm so torn on it.
Yeah. He kind of reminds me, I'm workshopping this and I haven't officially landed on this, but he kind of reminds me of Jordan Love in a way where the tools, the big play potential, the elusiveness, just the sheer confidence in yourself. And honestly, it reminds me of Jordan Love coming out of college too. he was not as highly regarded as a prospect, I don't think, because he had a down final season in college. But
whereas Cam Ward is literally the most touchdown passes.
Cam Ward kind of did the opposite. He got really hot in the last couple of seasons. And so, but like stylistically, they kind of remind me of each other because like they're, like you said, they're not afraid to push the ball into traffic. Every once in a while, he'll do this thing, Cam Ward, where he'll like run to the right and then throw across his body. Really ill-advised throw. Why did you do that? You have so much experience, yet you're still doing that. Same kind of deal I think you see with Jordan Love sometimes, where half the time he looks like really composed, really disciplined, big arm. He has literally the most, I think he has the highest miles per hour throw on Next Gen Stats record. He can throw the hell out of the ball. That's
a pretty sick thing to have on the resume. I'm not gonna lie. Whether or not it means anything,
the reason I know that is because Jordan Love it was like a touchdown pass, I think, to Tucker Kraft this last season, and then Joe Milton, that touchdown pass they were talking about, where he was drifting to his left and he fired it in for a touchdown. That's number 2 on the list. So, but yeah, so I'm workshopping that like comp. I think it kind of makes sense in some ways, just like stylistically how they play, and so. I don't know. It's like, what do you think of Jordan Love? That kind of might dictate what you think of Cam Ward. Like, do you want to take the good with the bad, or would you rather have a different style of quarterback?
Do you have 3 years for him to sit?
Right. And that's the other thing.
Well, we're also in this new world where experience is now a pro and not a con. I mean, Cam Ward played 5 years in college. DK, are you factoring that in? And like, are you on board with the new, like, oh, Jaden Daniels played 5 years in college. We actually want that. Bo Nix threw more passes than anybody in college. That's actually a benefit now.
I am. And I think so the argument is, and it's always been, I think, looked at as a positive if you have a lot of passes and a lot of plays in college. But there's sort of a point where that becomes a negative because you're not good enough to go to the NFL. You know what I mean? Like, you're playing for so long in college, you're starting to be 4 years older than some of the players you're playing against. And there's this age difference. And it's I think it at some point it becomes a negative. It's a really positive that you have a lot of experience, and then like too much experience, like the Bo Nix thing is like, okay,
the super senior in college.
Why
like,
is
you're
this
just
guy
here,
not fucking graduating?
Are you just here to party? Is that why you're hanging around?
Right. I think there's like it's like you reach a certain point in the bell curve. But I think generally it's much more positive to me in my mind now than I think I used to think of it that way. And that's part of learning, and that's part of like changing your process. And recognizing and knowing that you don't have all the answers with these guys, and quarterbacks are the most impossible position to scout, period. It's just so hard to know how guys are going to do in the NFL. But I think generally, big picture, experience is a good thing, period. Experience is a really good thing.
I wonder if the pendulum is swinging just because Anthony Richardson threw like 8 passes in college and then has not really worked out.
Trey Lance too.
Right, Trey Lance. It's like we had Trey Lance and Anthony Richardson right into Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels, and it's like, the answer is probably somewhere right in the middle, but we're definitely on the experience side of this.
If it was just Anthony Richardson, we're certainly at risk of overcorrecting. There's always players that cause people to overcorrect.
We overcorrect back and forth every year.
Yeah, it's like snap. It's like one great comedian spawns 10,000 bad comedians, and it's like there's always there's always players in the draft too. We're like, we need the next Deebo Samuel, we need the next Christian McCaffrey, we need the next Taysom Hill, and it's like, don't look for that. Look for the next person you're not looking for. It's like Brock Bowers. People are like, oh, we need the next Brock Bowers. Like, no, you don't. That doesn't exist. I will say, I think that it's not just a Richardson thing though, because it's about the idea of NIL changing where quarterbacks can go and get reps, go to a better system. Like it's a different
the environment is totally different now than it used to be.
So there's certainly still a risk of overcorrecting, but it's also a different landscape. I want to just say before we move on from quarterback, Shedeur Sanders, there's 2 things for him, just him as a prospect, which we can get into, and just him like entirely separately. Him as a player where, again, you're bringing in Deion Sanders, the Michael Jordan of LeVar Balls, and like, frankly, a snowplow parent. And I think the thing with Shedeur, where
snowplow parent, what's that?
So there's helicopter parents who hover. Mm-hmm. I think the new thing is snowplow parents, people who
clear
remove
the road
all obstacles. You clear everything in the way for your child. And they don't know how to, shovel snow. And so Shedeur Sanders, functionally speaking, was homeschooled as a football player. Like, Deion Sanders coached him 3 years as his offensive coordinator in high school, then took the head coach job at Jackson State, so Shedeur Sanders could be the quarterback there.
That's actually very weird. Yeah,
went to Colorado and like literally built up a D1 program for his son to then play quarterback at Colorado. So you're talking 5 years.
Recruited the number 1 player in the country in Travis
to play with his son. So you have 5 years of college. 3 years of high school, and I couldn't go further back than that. I assume Deion Sanders fucking coached his son in middle school. So he's had Deion Sanders and this quarterback coach they work with for 8 years. And so if you're telling me that he went through all that and they're just going to like let the fates decide where Shedeur plays NFL football, when he's already said on record that he will not just let the fates decide, like I think there's Shedeur as an evaluation, and then completely separately, like what Deion wants is going to matter where Shedeur plays. And so we'll see what happens. But Titans with the first pick, I would be stunned if Deion Sanders let Shedeur go to Cleveland. I'd be stunned. I don't think he'd be very impressed with the Giants or the Jets. And I kind of think it's either he likes the Titans, and if not, he goes to the Raiders with Tom Brady. Because
Raiders.
If you are Deion, and let me ask you a question. Deion, who has homeschooled his son for football, you have two options. I could entrust my son's development as a professional to Brian Callahan, the head coach of the Titans, or Tom Brady. I kind of think that Shedeur is there. I kind of wonder if Deion's going to make some calls and either force the Raiders to trade up or like just make some calls like LeBron James did with Bronny James, where like Rich Paul just called up all these NBA teams in the second round of the NBA draft and was like, hey, if you take Bronny James, he's going to go to fucking Australia and you're going to waste your pick. Like, I kind of wonder if Deion's going to call up these teams and be like, he's going to the Raiders, and if you take him, we're not going to show up.
Yeah, it's going to get weird. I feel like it is going to get weird.
Those two are the top guys. You want to go to running backs?
Yeah, sure.
So, again, DK, my father style. Is this position deep at running back this year?
This is actually a really good class, I think.
Is there anyone genuinely capital E elite at running back?
Ashton Genty is insanely exciting. Should be a top 10 pick. I mean, he has the talent to be a top 10 pick. When I make the mock drafts, I'm always a little bit. I don't know if this team would take a quarterback or a running back in the first round in the top 10 this high. I don't know if that will happen. It does happen sometimes, and teams that do it kind of surprise you sometimes. Like it surprised me when the Lions traded up to take Jahmyr Gibbs, just because I think it was after they had signed Montgomery. I can't remember the exact timeline, but it was basically like, this feels a little redundant, but
I think for running back, you have to take where they go in the drafts. Like, we have to put that aside for a second. I want to just know how good he is, because if you just look at the best running back prospects in the last 20 years, give or take, in reverse order, I'm not ranking them. Bijan Robinson out of Texas, gets Saquon Barkley at Penn State. Christian McCaffrey was unbelievable at Stanford. You had Zeke Elliott at Ohio State. Adrian Peterson, who I think is the best running back prospect of my lifetime. And then Reggie Bush. Where in that hierarchy is Genty? Like, he's not better than Adrian Peterson.
No.
Is he a better prospect than like Saquon?
I don't think so. I think he's maybe like just a tier below that. He's very, very good, but I don't know. I feel like it's hard to compare. Like, I remember Barkley being an incredible prospect. I remember Zeke being an incredible prospect, and the hype around those guys. Maybe it's just me misremembering because it was so long ago. It feels like we haven't had a guy at his caliber in a couple of years. But I just feel like he might be a touch below that. Maybe that's just because he went to Boise State. I don't know. And the competition's a little bit different there. That was like one of the arguments against him winning the Heisman. I understand all that. But at the end of the day, extremely explosive, extremely elusive. Like, he bounces off guys. Guys just try to tackle him, and he has this knack of slipping through tackles. He's a very, very slippery runner. More missed tackles forced this year, according to PFF, than any other player in their database. So that tells you a lot about the type of player he is. Really quick feet, good in the passing game. He's a complete prospect. He's a complete player. My comp right now for him is just thick Jahmyr Gibbs. He reminds me of Gibbs and how explosive he is and how fast he gets going. And just basically like his elusiveness, ability to break tackles and destroy pursuit angles. He's a really, really fun player to watch. But he's just a little bit bigger than Gibbs. He might not be quite as fast as Gibbs, but he has incredible balance, short area burst. He makes guys miss behind the line of scrimmage. Like, a guy will be unblocked in the backfield, and he'll just juke and make him miss. So he creates a ton. Really, really good player. Obviously, extremely exciting. I just always struggle with the comparing across, especially guys it's been a while now since Saquon and Zeke came out, so it's just hard to compare those.
Genty, I almost think that he might fall in the draft just because there's so many running backs that it's hard to it might be hard to justify taking Genty with like a top 12 pick.
That's what I worry about, and I don't know how early he'll go. He deserves to go in the top 5 probably.
Who are the other running backs? Who else has caught your eye? Obviously, the Ohio State guys are both incredible, like Judkins and Travion Henderson, and I think they'll both be in the draft. And Yeah, I mean, Judkins, he had 3 touchdowns. He was insane. Henderson, both Ohio State running backs are great. Has anyone else caught your eye from this running back class so far?
Caleb Johnson from Iowa, I really like. He's like a zone runner, big guy. Kind of reminds me of a Melvin Gordon type of player. Big bodied, elusive, can run away from a defense, big plays, tons and tons of big plays. He benefited from having a good offensive line in Iowa, and he was like a focal point of their offense. Hampton from North Carolina, Omarion Hampton is really explosive, tons of juice, downhill runner, incredible production. He's probably going to be a second rounder. He's really exciting.
Are there any guys you think will be a first rounder along with Genty?
Caleb Johnson, possibly. He could make it in there. Travion Henderson, I don't know if he has the body of work or like the production to do it, but I think his juice is pretty rare. And so teams could look at that and see a guy that could really make a difference on their offense.
Cam Scatabo, top 10 picks, Cam Scatabo.
Yeah, maybe. You never know. The slowish white running back is probably not going to be a first rounder, but he'll probably be a good player in the NFL.
I kind of think so. Scatabo is Arizona State's running back, and he's like my favorite. He was my favorite player in college football this year. And like I'm
what he did in the playoff is pretty
unbelievable. Yeah. I actually think Cam Scatabo reminds me of LeGarrette Blount. Like he's smaller than LeGarrette Blount, and he's like slower, but he's actually like a 3-down player. Scatabo is an example of someone who's going to not be like his measurables aren't going to be like NFL draft like huge, but he actually is a 3-down player. I think teams are going to be obsessed with his fucking grit and like throwing up and between third and fourth quarter, and then like going out and having 100 more yards.
Watch the Chiefs will take him in the third round. It's going to be like, fuck, he's going to be awesome.
Right?
I don't care that he's going to run a 4.7 40-yard dash. I literally want him on every fantasy football team I have next year. Like he's the epitome of like he sparks joy. I love him.
Just think about this, and they're not similar type of players, but Bucky Irving, one of my biggest regrets from last year's draft. Again, I loved him on tape. Thought he was super exciting, super elusive, really good in the passing game, and then he was slow and small, and I was like, that just doesn't usually work in the NFL when you're slow and small. And for whatever reason, and I talked myself out of him, even though I really liked his tape. And then, to my regret, he ended up being like the best rookie running back by far. And he was a 4th rounder, I believe, or 5th rounder, a 4th rounder. So I'm like not writing any of these guys off because they're slow. In other words, like there's other skills. Running back is a position where having true skills as like a pass catcher, as a pass blocker, vision. Some of these other things besides just pure speed really do matter. Having that elite speed is obviously also very good, but it's not the end all be all for the running back position because there's guys that are quote unquote slow who are really good in the NFL.
Wide receiver. Is this position deep or not this year?
No, I don't think so. I would say this is a down year for receiver.
Is anyone at receiver truly elite this year?
I think Ted McMillan. Yeah. There's been varying opinions on him, but to me, he looks like a top 10 player. He looks awesome. And I think Dane Brugler threw this one out. T. Higgins is a comp for him. And I was like, oh, yes, I can 100% see that. I think that makes a ton of sense. They're around the same size. They both move kind of fluidly. For guys that tall, they can change direction. They can run after the catch. You're just always surprised like how fast they look on the field. I think Ted McMillan is not going to test at elite numbers. He might not even test, honestly. In terms of his 40 and I was reading
he's a 95 in the new college football video game. He's a 95 overall. So why does he need to test?
Exactly.
I mean, he probably won't test, which would probably be the right move.
Our
Brick Johnson's going to look up the 95. Yeah,
Brick Johnson has seen all he needs to see.
Goddamn right.
But he's really good. He breaks a lot of tackles, runs after the catch, huge catch radius, really tough at the catch point, massively productive, a number one go-to guy. Yeah, T. Higgins. He kind of reminded me of Puka a little bit, just tough, physical. Yeah,
people are if people don't like him, if he does do anything and his measurables aren't great, people are just going to overthink it. Watch him play. He looks like Mike Evans and T. Higgins combined. He has awesome hands. He's like way too mobile and fast for his size. He's like super tough. He's thicker than T. Higgins. Mm-hmm. He just looks awesome across the board. Like he will be a productive player in the league.
Yeah,
don't overthink it.
I feel the same way about Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State. Good build, run after catch, great hands, awesome blocker. He's just a ball player type of receiver. You just know he's going to be good. He's one of those high floor guys. I don't know if he'll ever have a really high ceiling, but he's the type of player I want on my team. You know what I mean? So I'm willing to take him in the first round too.
You think any of these guys are going to go top 10 other than Travis Hunter, who's a hybrid?
I think Ted McMillan has a good chance to go top 10.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone else
I think
does.
he might go top 5.
Right. I think there's a lot of varying just views on what Luther Burden is from Missouri, because he is former 5-star guy, super explosive, awesome athlete, but his stats dropped precipitously this last year. Missouri's offense was really bad. They had issues at quarterback, but he went over, I think he had like 1,200 yards or something last year. And then this year, his numbers fell off completely. There's a little bit of, you're scheming him up a bit, but he kind of reminded me of a DJ Moore type of player. Get him the ball in space, let him break tackles. He's good running slot fades. He can get over the top of a defense. Incredible juice as an athlete. So I like him, but I think he's not as well-rounded of a prospect as some of these other guys.
Travis Hunter, receiver or cornerback?
I think he's probably a corner. Based on everything we're seeing so far, from I think the whispers of right now, teams view him more as a corner than a receiver.
And we'll mix him in as a receiver.
I think the idea is, and again, this is a huge discussion. We don't have the answer to this. Can he play on both sides? I would say he probably can some, but playing a full season where you're playing almost every snap on both sides of the ball is not done for a reason. It's very, very hard on your body. They play more games in the NFL. It's bigger, faster, stronger guys in the NFL. It's just everything is harder. Maybe he'll do it. I don't know. But I think the idea is he's a full-time corner, which he's really good at corner. Maybe he's really good at both positions, which is why he's probably going to be one of the top 3 picks. But play him at corner and then have him mix in as a receiver on, 50% of the snaps or something like that, 40% of the snaps. And I think a lot of receivers do that in the NFL, and that way you can utilize his skill set on both sides of the ball, but not totally wear him out after like 12 game season or whatever. And so, yeah, he has a ton of value on both sides of the ball, amazing ball skills, attacks the football in the air. I hate one of my biggest pet peeves is when receivers wait for the ball or corners wait for the ball to get there and try and scoop it. He attacks the football in the air. He's so good in those contested catch situations. Great instincts. Baits quarterbacks into thinking he's not in position before jumping under the route. Things like that. He's just a natural player. He's so good naturally at just knowing where the ball is going to be. He, as a receiver, he knows the route combinations. He can anticipate where the ball is going to go, jump passes, things like that. Really good ball skills, like I said. Great athlete. He's just one of the most exciting players in this class.
So if the 4 receivers to know this year in the draft are Ted McMillan, Travis Hunter, Luther Burden, and Emeka Egbuka, just judging
Throw
these
in
guys.
Matthew Golden from Texas, I think probably he's getting some hype right now too.
Okay, if you toss him in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Where would you put Travis Hunter just as a receiver on this list?
Probably second.
Okay,
I think
still after Tet.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
but it's hard to answer that question though. It's the same thing we were talking about with Penix last year. It was where would he be if he hadn't gotten hurt 4 times? And I'm I don't know. It's so hard it's an impossible question to answer because he has been hurt 4 times. If Hunter was only going to be a receiver, I think that's the question. I don't think that's going to happen. So it's hard to answer that question, but
I'm more asking if the whole commotion around him being this both sides of the ball guy has inflated his skills on one side of the ball. I'm just asking if that's
no.
If
I think
that's
he's legit. I think he's a legit receiver prospect, and some people might have him as the number 1 receiver.
Him being 6'1" and watching him do the through the legs dunk
he's an insane athlete, Craig. And I've said this a few times, and I don't want to overstate who he is, but the way he moves reminds me of Justin Jefferson. He's just Gumby. He's an insane athlete. It's
an exciting top 5. I got to say, I feel like it's pretty cool. I mean, the 2 quarterbacks are kind of whatever, but Ted McMillan and Travis Hunter is super exciting. Genty's super exciting. There's a lot of fun. There's good tight ends this year. There's a lot of fun skill position stuff on the offensive side of the ball.
I totally agree. I'm getting pretty excited about this class, honestly. I think the way that you would hear about it during the college season was this is a shitty class. And I think there's fewer pure blue chip prospects than we normally might see. But I really like a lot of these guys. And, I'm kind of an optimist. I kind of look at I look at the positives more than the negatives with a lot of players. But I don't know. I think there's some really exciting, interesting guys in this class who could be year 1 producers for their teams. I don't think it's gonna be hard to compare to last year because last year's class was sick, but there's definitely some very intriguing guys in this class.
Tight end, deep year at tight end, yes or no?
Yes.
Is anyone truly
I like
elite?
this tight end class a lot.
Is
I don't
anyone
know if
truly
there's-
elite?
I don't think there's a truly blue chip elite tight end in this class. You've got Tyler Warren from Penn State, who is Dallas Goedert meets Taysom Hill. He's tough and rugged, good tight end, runs crisp routes, good hands, insanely good at the catch point.
He's an absolute wagon.
Absolute fucking wagon. The play where Goddard did the two stiff arms en route to a touchdown a couple of weeks ago, I was like, okay, now I feel good about my comp for Tyler Warren, because that's the kind of guy he's in the open field. And they also just use him at running back. They give him direct snaps in Wildcat stuff. He had like over 100 yards rushing this year. I think he had like 20 something carries as a running back. There was one play where he snapped a football as like the quasi center. They had like a really weird formation, and he was the guy that was on the far left of the formation. He snapped the ball, ran down the field. It was a double pass over to the sideline, and then they threw it up to him, and he went over a guy and like mossed him in the end zone, scored a touchdown. I mean, this is the type of player he is. He's just like kind of Kittle-esque, and he's wild man, former high school quarterback, left-handed. He throws the ball like Heifetz says every once in a while too. I think he threw a touchdown this year.
So
he is the most corn-fed looking tight end that I've seen in a long time. Like this guy was truly built to do football and nothing else. Do you know where he was born? He was born in a city called Mechanicsville, Virginia.
Yeah, baby. Outside Richmond.
Mechanicsville.
Outside Richmond, baby.
That's
great.
Goochville.
That's awesome. Mechanicsville?
Mechanicsville,
just
Virginia.
The most blue collar.
I've spent some time in Mechanicsville,
Penn
boys.
State.
Have you? What is?
Oh,
give me a quick rundown on Mechanicsville.
A lot of good cars.
Sure.
The cars there run like amazingly.
Clean, smooth.
Which ironic probably means that the mechanics are not very busy because those cars
they're out
break
of work.
down.
It's a huge issue.
Yeah.
Besides him, though, there's a couple other guys that I think Colston Loveland from Michigan could be a first rounder. He's sort of in the Kincaid, Evan Ingram mold, where you're more of a receiver than a tight end in terms of he's a little lighter. I think his frame is pretty thin. He's a very good receiver, good route runner, can run away from a defense, just good speed. So he's that type of tight end. And then in the second, third round area, there's some good tight ends that I'm really interested in. Gunnar Helm from Texas, another good name. Gunnar Helm.
Oh, on the name of the names, there's Mason Taylor from LSU. I wanted to ask you guys. So Mason Taylor is the son of Jason Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
How do you guys feel about, instead of Jason Taylor naming his son Jason Taylor Jr., he just named him Mason Taylor, like he changed one letter?
I like it. It's like Lord of the Rings style naming, where all the kids are named some like
Blazer, Grazer, Laser.
Yes, 100%.
Oh, like Faramir and Boromir, and everyone's
exactly.
like tweaking letters.
Yeah, exactly. I'm into it.
So, Craig, are you going to do that? Would you name your son Greg?
Craig, Greg, egg, leg, peg.
Egg.
That's going to be my people. I have my friends like jokingly call me egg, which I don't love, but it's been around for so long that I'm okay with it now.
Which I don't love.
Probably shouldn't have mentioned that.
But
it's fine.
Taylor,
luckily, the listeners of the show cannot talk to me, so that's nice.
Oh,
yeah, but you should not have mentioned that.
Some of us can. Hey, Horlbeck.
Mayo egg.
Craig, Craig takes a sip of water now. He's like really fucked up.
He's like, fuck.
I don't mind it.
It's all right. I'm sure we'll forget about it.
It's like, you don't tell people that you shit your pants, because then
people
they just will never forget. So anyways, Mason Taylor, Gunnar Helm from Texas, Mason Taylor's from LSU, Harold Fannin Jr. from Bowling Green.
What is this guy's deal?
Fannin?
Number one graded tight end on Pro Football Focus, and he led the league like
insanely
yards
productive
per run, and
he is, I guess, sort of Jonnu Smithy style of tight end. Definitely smaller, or not as big as like a general Y tight end type of player. Run after the catch, get him in space, good hands.
My God, he had 117 catches, 1,500 yards, and 10 touchdowns this year.
Yeah,
dude, Harold Fannin Jr. sounds sleepery too. Like he sounds sleepy.
He caught 117 passes and
1,500 yards, Craig,
in 13 games. My goodness.
And it's funny because like I know he went to Bowling Green, but it's like the problem is he's 6'3" and 230. So they're like, oh, he's small, and I'm like, all right, he's 20 years old.
Yeah.
He was a linebacker
he's
in high school 2 years ago.
He's going to be a super fun sleeper in this class. I don't think he'll be a first rounder. He might be. He might, but probably not. He's only 20. And yeah, Craig, he led the FBS in yards after the catch, missed tackles forced, first downs, basically everything. He's just a out in space mismatch creator type of guy. I'm not going to compare him to Brock Bowers, but like in that mold of guys that you use more as a receiver than a blocker.
Isaiah Likely.
Yeah, actually, that might be a good one. That might be a good comp for him.
Okay.
Likely was another guy because he was Coastal Carolina, right? He was a small school guy, insane production, and people were like, "Oh, he can't be that good." He was
That's fake.
Coastal Carolina. Yeah.
Offensive line. Is it a deep year at offensive line?
I think it's a deep year with no blue chips.
Okay.
So I'm
There's no Joe Alt.
right.
So that's weird because it's kind of like quarterbacks where like the left tackles always get pushed up to
right.
Like, you know, if you need an offensive tackle. But like as a Giants fan, like I'm a little scared that the Giants are picking like third in a year where, well, you need a quarterback, but like the quarterbacks are fine and the tackles are fine. There's a lot of them. And I'm like, so you're telling me we should trade down 15 picks?
You should just take an edge rusher.
Just take Travis Hunter.
I honestly, so I've thought, okay, I've thought about this. I love Travis Hunter. My thoughts on Travis Hunter are basically,
dude, you have Malik Neighbors and Travis Hunter. How cool?
No, but I have two issues with it. One,
you're getting good players. Come on.
No, I want the good players, but I've thought about it a lot. I love Travis Hunter so much. And I actually believe that I think whoever takes him should have a plan to maybe have him on both sides of the ball. And that sounds cool. I think if you don't have a plan, it'll cause issues because I think Dion will also be involved in Travis Hunter. And I think that it will be an issue if you only want to play him on one side of the ball, because here's the thing. As much as people might say it's unrealistic for him to play in the NFL on both sides, he was told that in college football. So it's like Travis Hunter, you know who believes he's going to play on both sides of the NFL? Is Travis Hunter. And I think that could cause issues. But more importantly for the Giants, what's the last team who built a great team around the edges? Like the truth of the matter is like you do have to build in the edges and in the trenches. And I'm like, the Giants took Malik Neighbors last year and he's the man. Yeah. And I'm like, I love that. But I'm like, you're going to take a receiver and a cornerback in like back-to-back drafts. And it's like, I kind of just want to go get like Abdul Carter and just put Abdul Carter there with Brian Burns at defensive end and Dexter Lawrence in the middle. At least have a fucking identity as like the Giants. That like
is
maybe
Kayvon Thibodeau not good? What's the
Thibodeau's okay, but like I also he's frankly it's hard to have a better situation than playing with Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns, and Thibodeau's like, okay, I'm fine to take.
Like he's been solid. I was looking him up the other day because I was like, what? I don't follow the defensive side of the ball as much as I used to in terms of, because we're just talking about fantasy all year. And I'm like, man, he was such a huge polarizing prospect. I haven't heard his name a ton.
And I mean, we could just merge the trenches here with offensive line and defensive line and make this all about the Giants or whatever. Because I feel like the pass rushers in this class, I feel like people talk about them with like Riz and like like people are excited. Riz is the wrong word. That was very boomery of me. But like Abdul Carter,
you tried to force that in. Definitely.
I know I did. But like it was tough. But Abdul Carter, people get like goosebumps talking about him. Like Abdul Carter is like you watch, Oregon, Penn State or Penn State, Notre Dame. You're like, that's the best player. Like you can just see it. Like Abdul Carter is clearly like an NFL player. And then like there's so many other pass rushers in this draft. It's like Jalen Walker and Michael Williams for Georgia. And then like you keep talking to me about Shamar Stewart at Texas A&M. And I'm like, I feel like people get excited talking about these guys. Yeah. The offensive linemen, people are like, there's a lot of them, right? And I'm like, do you like any of them individually? And those people are like, nope.
I would say, the offensive linemen, the two top guys, I think most people think are the top guys, Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas. Will Campbell's from LSU. Kelvin Banks Jr. is from Texas.
I like Will Campbell. I feel like I feel like Kelvin Banks is like an NPC. I
like them both.
Maybe that's good. I think
the problem is, and this is what we're going to see a lot with most of these top tackles is, maybe he works better at guard in the NFL. You know what I mean? That's the type of thing we're dealing with where it's, there's always a caveat or an asterisk next to these names. I think the one guy that I really like, Josh Simmons from Ohio State, he tore his ACL or he had a knee injury and he missed the entire season. So he's coming off an injury. So there's an asterisk or caveat with all these guys. And I think the problem is a lot of them are going to be viewed as, they were good college tackle. Maybe they are better at a guard in the NFL. And so they're not like top tier prospects, even though I think they will be good players. Then you get into the discussion of, are you going to take a guard in the top 10? Maybe.
Meanwhile, the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl, moving Joe Thuney from guard to tackle. But
ultimately, I think I'd land on the idea. There is a discussion to be made about like tackles make so much more money than guards that it's worth the value proposition of getting a good tackle in the draft is better than getting a good guard. But ultimately you just want a good offensive line. Like, just get good players.
I have a conspiracy theory that like 1/3 of the times they write could be a guard is because their arms are like 30 inches instead
they're
of
like
34.
a half an inch too short. Yeah.
And then 2/3 of the time it's in case this guy sucks, I said he should be a guard. It's like you're covering your ass and it's freaking, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, but like Will Campbell, he kind of looks like a guard body type wise. I think the same could be said about Kelvin Banks. Armand Membu from Missouri.
I want to know what a tackle looks like. I feel like every year we've been doing this, everyone's like, any tackle that's even a little flawed, people are like, fuck him, put him at guard.
I personally think it's like you're a little taller and more athletic looking.
Taller, longer,
guards are
more
like
mobile.
Guards are
Is it just like
wide-bodied.
a scarcity thing and the idea that there's only 64 tackles starting in the NFL at any given time, and it's such a high bar to actually suggest that someone could like block Myles Garrett that people are like terrified to not put the guard caveat?
Yeah.
Because I feel like the guys who are definitely tackles,
tackle.
Because I feel like the people who are definitely tackles, like call it like Kingsley Suamataia last year, are like raw as hell and might just be terrible. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a fine line between power and movement skills and grace, kind of, you know what I mean? Like when you're on the edge, you have to be able to keep up with speed to run the arc or whatever, and also be able to take on a bull rush. And it's hard to find guys that can do both of those things. And these defensive ends these days are so athletic, so insanely athletic, the best athletes on the field. And you have to block those guys. And it's just a really hard job. So you can't be too big and thick and fat. You can't be too big and heavy, but you also have to have power. It's a really hard combination to find.
So last year's tackle class, if offensive linemen are vegetables that you should probably take but don't want to, last year's class was like some really sick, like awesome side dish vegetables, and then this year it's kind of like boiled vegetables where you should probably take them, but it's not going to be that exciting. Anyone else other than Abdul Carter that's like really catching your eye as a pass rusher? Defensive lineman.
Defensive lineman Mason Graham from Michigan, super fun. Just a ball of energy on the interior, big, physical, explosive, causing disruption constantly. He's really exciting. I like him a lot. Jalen Walker, you mentioned, he's a combo linebacker edge rusher. I think some teams might view him as a tweener. There's going to be some weird discussions about him where someone's going to be like, he's not good enough to be a linebacker only, and he's not big enough to be an edge rusher only. So where's his true value? I personally would take him really high because he's thick, explosive, great athlete, plays with a ton of intensity, really productive, can be an edge rusher or can play off the ball. His closing speed is insane. I'm gonna clip a couple of plays for you guys with Jalen Walker where I sat up in my chair. I was like, oh my God, this guy has incredible, just explosive acceleration and closing speed. He's a cool player.
Would you say he has Riz?
He has so much aura that I just want him on my team.
Speaking of Riz, Jack Sawyer. Yeah. Where are you at?
Yeah, I think he's good. He's the opposite of Jalen Walker in the sense where he's not a super exciting athlete, but he's just a ball player,
just
guy that
Captain Jack.
Is he the Cam Scatterbo of defensive ends?
Yes, but he's going to go much higher. He'll probably go late first, early second.
Wait, do we have the clip? Do we still have the clip?
Warren looking. It's intercepted at the goal line. Unbelievable. Wow, Jack Sawyer. the hero. Captain Jack.
Captain,
Fuck, the Giants should just take him third.
It's the inhale on the wow. It's him sucking air back in. Wow.
Do you think we could get Gus Johnson on the show when we're in New Orleans for the Super Bowl? Do you think
I hope he knows we're not making fun of him.
No,
we love him more than anything.
Gus, we love you.
Yeah.
We love you, Gus. We should get
Jack
Gus Johnson.
Sawyer.
We should. Oh fuck! We should get when we're in New Orleans. We should have Gus Johnson come on the show and give him beignets and have him announce plays.
I think
Someone
that's like
write that down.
A bridge too far. But yeah.
What? We'll get.
Maybe
we're
let's
paying
just
for the.
focus on
How
getting
many
him on the
beignets can Gus Johnson fit in his mouth and still say the hero?
I mean, I like
Just
your
eat a
enthusiasm.
beignet and yell Jack Sawyer.
Just say Stroud while you have 6 beignets in your mouth.
Go Stroud. Oh my God.
Looking. It's the best.
You really do it well, Craig. It's spot on.
Only he can make the word looking be incredibly compelling.
All right, DK, before we get out of here,
Yeah.
no, any other players you want to shout out?
Great question. I think there's a couple of big, really, really heavy defensive tackles that are fun in this class. You got Deone Walker from Kentucky, who's like 350 pounds.
How many pounds?
Like 350, 345. And then Kenneth Grant from Michigan, who's 340-ish. And they can both move pretty well. You remember Tavondre Sweat from last year?
Mm-hmm.
They're not as big as that guy, but they're
big boy named Sweat was brutal.
Yeah. But they're big and twitchy for their size, and they're fun to watch. So I throw those guys out there. Malachi Starks, the safety from Georgia, super fun. Will Johnson, the corner from Michigan, tons of ball production, jumps passes. He's really good. Just looking down my list here. I mean, those are the guys that come to mind. I'm excited to see where Tyler Warren ends up. He's just one of the more fun players.
The tight end out of Penn State.
Yeah.
Lance Zierlein compared Tyler Warren to Jeremy Shockey, and I've never been so jealous of a player comparison
that makes total
in my entire
sense.
life. Half of it's because of the hair, but still, I don't care. Ugh.
He was a left-handed high school quarterback. He's like, I was watching some of his high school highlights. He's so big compared to all the kids in his class. It's
Andy Reid, the punt pass kid.
Yeah, 100%. Andrew Reid in the punt pass competition or whatever. Yeah, that was kind of what he looked like.
All right, let's do some emails real quick before we get out of here. So we got a lot of feedback. DK had basically all those commercials are running this weekend about Farmer's Dog and like the organic dog food. And DK's basically like, I'm not giving the organic dog food to my dog who eats his own shit.
Did I have a lot of haters?
No, I think a lot of people were quite liberated by what you said, actually. So,
that's good.
We got an email but I think a lot of people vibe with you. I want to start with an email from Tom.
Thomas.
Tom wrote, hearing about someone else's dog that loves to eat poop was very near and dear to my heart. Because
why do they like it? Why do they like eating shit?
There's multiple reasons. They've done research on this. Like some of it is diet related, which we've tried, and that's why we give him the anti-poop pills. They're essentially supposed to provide the vitamins that dogs are supposedly looking for when they eat their own shit.
Is that not what Farmer's Dog is?
So the pills are not like repellent against the poop. It's just like...
it's supposed to provide the nutritional stuff that dogs are apparently looking for when they eat their shit.
So why don't you just, if you feed your dog Farmer's Dog, would that be giving the animal all of the nutrients it needs to not eat the shit rather than give him shitty kibble and the non-poop pills?
In theory, yes, but the pills are not working whatsoever. So I think in practice, probably no.
I think, DK, what you need to do is buy the Farmer's Dog for a month and see how it goes.
It'd be funny, actually, if it did work. It'd be ironic.
He's like stronger and faster and smarter than ever.
Yeah, that'd actually be kind of good. Maybe I'll give it a try.
Fuck you should.
Tom writes in, we had a puggle named Surly.
Puggle.
Who could not wait to eat his own shit.
Yeah.
And Surly would sprint across the yard to get the shit as fresh as possible when our other dog would shit.
So gross.
So the other dog would shit and the other dog would sprint across to eat the fresh shit. And we tried stuff like changing his food, anti-poop eating pills, putting hot sauce on the poop.
No, we did the same thing. There's a spray that you can buy where you spray it on their shit, and it's supposed to. And imagine this: there's a product that's supposed to make shit taste worse. Like that to me is just hilarious. Anyways,
what
it didn't
was in
work.
the spray?
None of the shit
More
works.
shit? Was it just shit spray? What's in the spray?
We got like, all these people go on Shark Tank
or something. I don't know.
Imagine a group of people being like, all right, we got to make something smell worse than shit.
It's so true. Oh my God.
So
even worse shit.
Hot sauce is crazy. Imagine like buying a bottle of hot sauce. The counter guy's like,
honestly, I feel like growing up, my two dogs would every time I tried to give them like a vegetable, they were just so uninterested. Just put a piece of broccoli on all the shit. Maybe that'll change things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like a kid trick.
Yeah.
So Tom wrote, none of the tricks work. Surly was hopelessly addicted to our other dog's shit. And we're in Minnesota. That also meant eating rock hard frozen pieces of shit later in the winter. Literally, he ate pieces of shit for breakfast.
Is this worse than the booger conversation?
Fucking poopsicle.
I think it's worse than it's not as bad as the booger conversation. I think this is a real thing. Like I don't.
It's not nearly as bad as the booger. It couldn't even. It's not even in the same universe as the booger conversation.
Now, if it is worse, I'll pause. You can pause if that one made you queasy. He says one last note. Ugh. My dog once threw up after eating the shit onto my wife.
Yeah. Been there. Not onto my wife, but been there. Into my house, which is bad enough.
Yeah. Anyway, so this next one's a little more academic. So from Max.
Max, a million.
Max writes, dog food used to contain ground up eggshells for calcium, which is why dog shit used to turn white.
Is that right?
It thinks it wasn't good for dogs, though, so they stopped using an additive, which is why you don't see it anymore, which explains the scene in Step Brothers with the white dog shit, which I never understood.
It was just like mold growing on the shit or something.
I never understood the white dog shit thing. DK, when you were a kid, did dog shit turn white?
Yes. And now that I think about it, I don't really know if I've seen white dog shit lately.
Wow. Craig, did you? I feel like I literally learned about this from Step Brothers. I've never seen this myself. White dog shit.
I don't know if I have either. I agree with DK. I kind of thought it was always like mold that had grown on the shit.
No,
I googled
it.
This guy's right. It's like a diet that is high in calcium, which changes the color of the poop. Dogs that consume a lot of bones will often have white poop.
And it's kind of like now when you see an orange dog shit, when someone didn't clean up, it's like they had pumpkin to like help the dog digest. So it's like the orange. It's like the white dog. But anyway, I never understood the white dog shit thing.
This is so funny. I actually thought it was mold. I don't think it is.
DK, test it out. Feed him. I mean, he eats his own shit. Give him eggshells.
Ugh, God. That's hilarious. I actually, now that I Google it, you see questions. Why don't you see white dog shit anymore?
Are you on Reddit on No Stupid Questions?
And then if a dog eats its own white dog shit, does that beget more white dog shit?
Oh,
probably. Is it
just turn gray?
Yeah, like you're putting like vodka through a Brita filter, but it's just pure and pure. Wow, I'm really reading about this all now. Wow.
People have the funniest things that they think about in Google.
Email us at ringfantasyfootball@gmail.com if you understand more about the science of the white dog shit, if you are experiencing any more white dog shit.
Oh, Carlos sounds like the sixth Indiana Jones movie. Indiana Jones and the legend of the white dog shit.
Carlos says he has white dog shit in his backyard right now.
Wow. Pixar, it's not real.
Yeah, Pixar, it's not real, Carlos.
Prove it. Tweet it.
All right. Email us at ringfantasyfootball@gmail.com if anyone can find us who did the NFL draft chime or anyone knows about white dog shit. Thank you, DK. Thank you, Craig. Thank you to Carlos and Kai. Thank you to Austin. Thank you to Carlos's dog for the white dog shit. Thank you everybody emailed in about the dog shit and the poop and the farmer's dog and everything. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Maroon 5. I have a question. Sorry.
Because
we're going to move off Maroon 5 quickly here.
Ah, damn. Tough.
Well, we can come back.
Sorry, Adam.
I have a question. And I think that this might be one of those, we could use it as a poll question. And it's like something that in the results are kind of surprising. Remember how we had a poll question about standing versus sitting for wiping? And I was like shocked as many people stand.
The stand and wad people are out there right now.
I have a question. This goes out for everyone listening. I think that there's two types of couples. The couple that will send each other pictures of their own shit and the couples that will not ever dream of doing something like that. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? I've talked to people and they will like send their wife a picture of the shit they took.
I've never heard of a couple doing that in my life.
I think it's a thing that people do.
I don't know.
I also can't imagine that is something that a couple would advertise publicly.
You're not going to be talking
it's
about
happening under wraps.
How many couples do you know that do this, DK?
I don't, not a lot, but I've heard it multiple different times. And to the point where I've been like, what the fuck? Like you do that? I would never dream of doing that.
I thought you were going to say send photos of your dog's shit.
Well, that's what made me think of it. That's what made me think of it. Yeah. Maybe we should just have a poll of have you ever sent a picture of your shit to someone?
Well, no, not somebody, because like college guys Snapchatting their shit to friend, like that's actually, I've seen that probably more times than I want to.
That to me is just wild too. Frankly, any picture of your shit is wild to me.
I think it's you can make the case for it as an idiot 20-year-old
ever want to see someone else's shit.
But like a 47-year-old man sending his wife a picture of his shit.
No, it's more like
weird.
People. I think it's not. It probably doesn't happen as much when you're out of your 20s. I think it's like a person in their 20s thing. But I remember hearing it from multiple different people in my lifetime, and I was just like, what the fuck? Like I can't imagine doing that.
And we
Anyway.
should
I think
clarify,
it matters
like,
a lot if it's a Snapchat or not. I think if it's a Snapchat,
Well, my
or
generation
text,
didn't do
it's-
Snapchat, so I don't know. But they were texting each other pictures. A wild thing to do. Some
Maybe
people we need to know less about each other.
we should, we should throw
You're
in
the
a
one
poll.
talking about it on a podcast.
Maybe it's a very small amount of people. I don't know.
We can poll it if we want.
we're
and
gonna poll
see.
it. We're
We
gonna
can
do
poll
this.
it.
I'm just curious. This is like a social
And
experiment.
for people listening, do not click yes if you sent a photo to your partner for like a medical question or medical reason. Like this is only for like sheer like joy or, randomness, not because like, does this look weird to you? That doesn't qualify, right?
We
yeah,
have
sure.
4 options. Should medical related one time be an option?
No, we just got to make sure the
Sheer
question.
joy. Also, this reminds me, in Europe, the toilets have the little shelf, so you can like when you shit, it lands on the shelf, and you can like inspect it and make sure everything's looking good.
What?
This is going one step beyond
you
the
talking
California gut health thing.
I did not notice that when I was in Europe.
What are you?
It's not
talking
everywhere.
I was
About?
in
You said
London.
Europe.
Didn't see
That's a
it.
continent.
What's that?
I don't know what you're talking about. With
There
the
are
toilet shelf.
toilets in Europe. I'm going to Google this.
We're back in our wheelhouse of toilet conversation.
What is happening?
toilet shelf? Hold on.
Here's a
That's not-
culture lesson for you. The poop shelf.
Is that what it's called?
Apparently it doesn't happen as much as anymore. I went to Europe in 2001.
I
remember.
see it.
It's a shell. It's like a flat spot, sort of where, like right where you poop, and your poop lands on it. And
God,
apparently,
that sounds awful.
yeah,
I've
it's
never
like
heard of
shit.
this. I've never seen this till.
I mean, it's quite literally shit, but
It's just serving it up on a silver platter for your dog.
yeah, God. But anyways,
And then that
I
shelf-
apologize.
Does that shelf kind of like open up or something?
I think then there's like
a James Bond thing. The
water
floor opens.
around
Is
it.
there like
so-
a trap door button you can hit so it falls into the?
I
No,
don't
you actually
think
have
so.
to take a
I think the
spray
water
and make the
goes-
shit
Well,
worse
they have
with the shit
sprayers.
spray.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think. Hold on, let me see why this happens.
I feel like I could inspect my shit well enough in the normal.
I was gonna
toilet.
say-
It's like an
I-
examination plate.
I-
Apparently,
wow,
it's so you
what?
can look at your shit and make
How
sure it
often-
looks normal.
Are people turning around and examining what they've just done?
Well, in America, not a lot. We didn't
Maybe-
grow up on this.
Okay.
The
The
but
shit
maybe
shelf.
you know what? Maybe we should have. Craig, this is one step further than the California gut biome.
And the cis
thing.
pinklers.
we
The
should be
cis sprinklers.
sifting through our own shit after every bowel movement.
I don't remember having any corn.
Okay, we need to get the hell out of here. Our apologies to Maroon 5.
Goodbye, everyone.